Hey there, sisterhood. April here, and I'm so excited to launch you into the universe of What's Her Superpower. Superpowers, sisterhood, secrets revealed. What's Her Superpower explodes onto the scene, alternating between real talk solo episodes and electrifying guest interviews. Hello, and welcome to another episode of What's Her Superpower. I am blessed today to be here with Melissa Moss. She is in the process of putting together an incredible retirement summit, and I was one of her speakers. So, of course, I had to ask her to jump on with us and share her with you because just an amazing young lady. And I love what she's doing. I love her heart, and you're going to love her too. So, hi, Melissa.
Hi, April. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing and how you kind of got into this retirement summit thing.
Absolutely. So I am a certified financial planner, and in my work with people in planning for their retirement and living their retirement, I have just noticed that there is a gap between, having money and living like a truly wealthy life. And so money matters, yes, and it really comes down to more than that. So I wanted to explore a truly rich period of our lives that we call retirement, and what goes into that, and what are the aspects of it that the happiest retirees truly pay attention to and experience. And so that's why I'm creating this summit. It's called the Remarkable Retirement Event, and we really are taking a deep dive into areas that most people who talk about retirement might not go to. So we're talking about health and wellness. We're talking about purpose and identity, permission for adventure. So there are so many aspects, and I haven't listed them all, but we're really taking a deep dive into so many different little facets of what can make a life really fulfilling and whole.
I love that. Yeah. And, all my listeners know that I talk about retirement all the time because I think it's so important for us to, just like you said, we have to plan, because a good retirement is not going to accidentally happen. And if we don't plan for it, no one's going to do it for us.
Right.
And, it's not like you wake up one day and you go, oh, yeah, I'm going to retire. What do I need to do? And that's something you should really look at. I mean, you're young, but people in their 20s should be planning for retirement because they have time on their side. And, when you get to my age, I'm closer to 60 than I am 50, and time is not on my side. But, my husband and I have planned well, and I don't know that retirement gets better than what we have. So,
yeah, absolutely. And when you are younger, you do have time, and time is a huge lever. You can save, and that money can just compound and compound. But it's not just about money. We got to think about our health and mobility, our wellness as well. And, if you take care of yourself just a little bit when you're younger, it goes a long way. Because there's no faster and less fun way perhaps to run out of money than spending it all on your healthcare. Yeah. So, that's not what you want to do. So there are different things that you can think about. And, I'm sure your audience is one that has they probably think about this type of thing, and they probably also take care of themselves. But it's seeing how these different pieces fit together, and wondering or asking, is there something else I could be doing to really protect the vision I have for my life? And is there something else, can I dream even bigger? And, there might be something more out there for me than what I've even thought about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because the days of retirement, it used to be, oh, you retire, you're going to sit on the back porch in the rocking chair and just wait to die. Those days are gone. People are more active later in their lives. And like you touched on was health. That is something that money cannot buy. And we joke all the time, if I'd known I was going to live this long, I'd taken better care of my body. But the Navy had a lot to do with that. They didn't help. But, I tell my husband all the time, we need to travel now that we're healthy enough while we can still get around, because we go to places. We went to Disney with our kids, and you see these poor old people, they're being pushed around in wheelchairs, and I told the kids, I said, don't you dare bring me to Disney in a wheelchair where I'm like drooling on myself. No, I'll give you the money to go away. Okay. Just go to Disney. I don't want to go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Money is not going to make for a happy retirement, but it gives you choices when you're in retirement and throughout life. So
it truly does. I mean, it gives you the choice of where to live and how you want to live. And, do you want to vacation a lot in your go-go years? Or, I agree. Like, retirement is no longer, and I say it's getting relegated to the basement and the rocking chair, but I love a nice rocking chair. Don't get me wrong. Like, it's somewhere in my vision to be on a porch somewhere looking over mountains or a beautiful scenery, maybe having a cocktail or a cup of coffee, just enjoying that. But retirement is life. It's not like the end. It's not like get out of the way now for us young whippersnappers to take over. Like that's not it. Like it's truly, retirement is freedom, and it presents its opportunities and its challenges. So, we get to look at that, and it's kind of a fun thing. So,
yeah. Yeah, I'm sure you've learned a lot. You'll have all kinds of tools in your toolbox by the time you finish this summit.
Oh my goodness, it's really great. So, just as an example of a couple of different conversations we've had, I've talked to hormone experts around, things that you can do now that are free, that can help you manage your health and hormones. And it's beyond, for women, it's beyond the menopause years. And so really taking care of your body and your brain, that's huge. Also, I'm talking to people who have created systems for discovering where do you truly want to live if you want to move somewhere for your retirement and it's not where you have been living. And you were in the military, so you moved around quite a bit, and you had the choice, well, where do I want to end up? And you chose Tennessee, which is a great choice. And different people have different needs for where they want to be, whether it's, rural or in a vibrant little city, or with humidity or without humidity. Like there are so many different nuances there, and it's choosing wrong for yourself can be kind of miserable and costly.
Yeah. Yeah. And it, we did a lot of research before we decided on Tennessee. I mean, like taxes, cost of living, medical care, because we're retired military, we wanted to make sure, see how the VA hospitals were, things like that. But, it takes it takes work. I mean, the work that we put into planning a vacation, people put more work into planning a vacation than they do with their retirement. And that's so sad. But, the whole hormone stuff, we could have a whole conversation on that. Things that people don't tell you when you're young, and then when you find out the hard way as you get older.
I suppose that's what this is all about. It's about bringing that expertise together so that we don't have to learn the hard way. So,
yeah, I'm looking forward to that episode. So what led you into life as a financial planner, and, bring us on your journey. How did you get here?
Absolutely. So before this, I worked as a director of operations for a nonprofit. We're focusing on atrial fibrillation, patient education. So different. Melissa, how did you go from this, heart issue and patient advocacy to financial planning? And, we would do an annual conference, and they still do this. If you have atrial fibrillation, check out stopafib.org. It's a great resource for people who have a need in that area. And everything was free, everything except for the annual patient conference. And the reason it wasn't is because it costed money to produce. It's high end and multiple days, it took catering, it took event space, AV, so many different things. And there would be some people who would reach out and they would say, I really need this information, but I'm on a fixed income. And it's heartbreaking when there's something that you believe you need and would make a difference for you, and $100 gets in the way.
Yeah.
And so when I was seeing that, I just knew that there was something that I could do, and I, through that work, I absolutely helped people, but it's on a grant, like a big scale, and it's hard to actually see the impact for people one-on-one or in person or what that's like. And so just knowing that there is this problem, and like if I can do anything about it, no one I work with is ever going to have $100 get in the way of something they need. Mm-hmm. And I really like the ability to work with and see and do life with people. And so that I get to do that in this line of work. And it's just so fulfilling. That, and like I get to talk about amazingly fun things. And that is really what people care about, because that's ultimately, yes, we do holistic financial plans, we do investments, we do insurance, and there's a lot of like nuance and tedious, body of work that we deal with. But ultimately it's sitting face to face with my client and getting to know them and what they care about. And I love that personal touch. So that's why I got into this.
Well, good. Yeah. And I tell people all the time, like, I'm not a financial planner. I can tell you what we did, but part of what we did was to have a financial planner. And it is so important because there are so many different parts of it. I mean, there is insurance, there's investments, and you cannot, as an individual, be an expert in everything. So you need to talk to someone who can help you walk that journey and come out the other side better for it. So
absolutely. And it's ultimately investing or how people manage their money. It is such a personal thing. You can get a lot of information on the internet, and like that's hopefully you're going to good and trustworthy sources for that. If you do, I'm not saying that's not a good idea. And there are some places, some sources where I'm like, if somebody's selling you a high, like an expensive financial product or something on TikTok, like maybe wait. Like, I don't know. Ask some questions, like really, I don't know, interview some people. But it's ultimately comes down to it's very personalized, and there are many different products that are good products or solutions that are good things, but I wouldn't necessarily just do whatever, your brother-in-law is doing because your brother-in-law had success with it. It may not be the right thing for you at that time. So talking to somebody and really getting a good idea around like, hey, this is my situation, and getting some ideas for what that, what you could do is probably a good move for anybody. So, yeah,
it makes me, it amazes me. It constantly amazes me that in 2024, there's so many things that we talk about. I mean, we watch TV and they have commercials on stuff that I just don't need to see on TV. I think I'm getting old, but we still don't talk about money. It's this taboo subject. We're not teaching our kids about money. We're not talking to them about money. It's like, it's rude to talk about money. No, it's not. It is necessary to talk about money because we have so many people. And like you said, $100 makes a difference where they can't get the information they need because they can't afford $100. And, and you've probably got statistics about this as far as like how many people are one, and we're not talking like a tragic medical, mishap or, emergency that would put them being broke or filing for bankruptcy, but sometimes just an engine blowing up or a flat tire, having to get a new tire. And people are making the decision nowadays of whether they are going to buy groceries or they're going to pay their light bill.
Yeah, it is actually, inflation has really after such a period of, very low inflation, to have this skyrocketing experience, I mean, it's the first time I remember inflation like this, and I was born in the 80s, but I've heard that in the 80s it was high inflation, and probably even higher than now, and that interest rates on mortgages were 18, 19, 22%. So I guess it could get worse than it is now, but average inflation over the last 50 years has been something like 3.5%. I wish I remember exactly what it was, but when I do the math for that and what that looks like, is that somebody retiring today based on the average inflation of the last 50 years, and that's since like 1964, right? If that is 3.8%, you will need $3.50 in 30 years for every $1 that you require today. That's just if spending stays the same. So, that can sound really scary, but the point is you can't really save dollar for dollar for what you're going to need to support a multi-year, multi-decade, say 30-year retirement. And you retired early, so you're looking at even financing and funding 4 or 5 decades of retirement. So, yeah. so it's, all of these things are possible, and it helps to really have a hold on your cash flow. So whatever your budget looks like, saving, if you can save, that really helps. When you're in the beginning phases, like the principles are the principles. Spend less than you earn, save for a rainy day, simple things, invest, and that'll take you pretty far. So if you can do that, it gets more complicated later. And when you start to live off of your nest egg, but it's never too early to get some professional input on what you could be doing or how to protect what you have done. And so we were talking about, if a medical emergency or something came up, or, even if it was, say, like a tire replacement, and I don't know, you hit a curb or something, a nail in the road, and you needed tires replaced. Those are pretty expensive. So a lot of people don't have the $1,000 on hand cash just to pay, especially when you're fighting with, grocery store prices and everything else, like our homeowners insurance, everything is going up. And hopefully at some point, our inflation experience will be a little more level, and we won't be talking about that quite so much. But we can still do the things, right? It comes down to behavior. So no matter what is happening in the world, there are things that are inside of our control. And that's ultimately what I like to focus on, is the things that we can control. And so there's also, speaking of things on TV, I don't watch a lot of financial news or media or news in general. I mean, I see what's going on in the world, but I also picked up a newspaper. This was a few years ago. Somehow, I think my mom saved a newspaper from the early 90s. And if it didn't have the date printed on it, I would have thought it was from the same year that I was looking at it. It turns out that there's always something happening. There's always, and news is always pretty much going to be negative news. So I think that given the perspective there and the shift is, I think things are going to work out. Like, we don't know. There's going to be volatility, but I'm pretty optimistic about the future. And so there's no scaring anybody into something. I'm not a big fan of fear-based anything. So that might make me a little different than some other people out there trying to scare you into doing something with your money. But
yeah, and that's just it. I think it's just important for people to realize that they have the control. Yeah. They just have to take action. So, that's what I want people to realize. And I'm like you, doom and gloom, and you get enough of that just being in the world, but just to know that you have the ability, and even if you don't have the knowledge, you just research and you get somebody that has the knowledge like you. So let's talk a little bit about Melissa. So where are you from? Well, tell me about like your upbringing and stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born in Miami and lived there until about a year after Hurricane Andrew. So my family, speaking of insurance, we needed our insurance.
I bet.
So they replaced our house after that experience. We sold it and moved to Georgia. So I say I was so young. I was not really involved in that experience, but so started out in Florida, and then my parents had met in Georgia, so it was moving back for them. And I was raised in suburban Atlanta from that point on. And so my dad, his family is from this area, and my mom's, her family is in Alabama. So we'd go back and forth quite a bit. And I thought I wanted to go back to Florida after high school. So I actually decided to go to Florida State University in Tallahassee. And I had an amazing time going to school there and learning a lot. And I learned that the humidity just hits a little different in Florida than even in Georgia. So the elevation does something amazing for us here in the, suburbs. But so I came back, but then, graduating kind of into the recession that was about the time the housing crash happened. It was kind of an awful time to be a new graduate. And I had bigger ambitions for my life at that time than waiting tables. And so, which was the job I can find at the time. It was really kind of sad. A lot of my friends went back to grad school, and maybe I should have done that too. But I took that opportunity to really catch a vision for what I wanted. And I saw myself kind of being in the middle of things. And so I moved up to Washington, D.C. And
Wow.
it was a big change.
Yeah, I bet.
And so what was happening at that time in DC is, while, the rest of everyone was going through somewhat of an economic slump, and the federal government had a lot going on. So it was the least slumpy sector I could see. So I moved up there, and I had such an amazing experience getting to know people who were movers and shakers, working for the government or contractors or attorneys. I ended up working for this nonprofit, started that job up there, and just getting involved. I had the immense privilege of living in Capitol Hill. And did you know that you could just show up for briefings on Capitol Hill? You can just go. And so that was amazing. So I'd find myself looking to find, things that I was interested in, and I would just go to hear about these various things. And that was so cool to have that opportunity. And because of my interest in public health at the time, that's when I started working for the nonprofit. And I lived in DC for about a decade. And at some point, we all make life decisions that, for whatever reasons. And I was, there was a couple things playing into my decision. One was I really wanted to park at where I lived instead of some block somewhere in a radius. Mm-hmm. So city living was fun, but I was just ready for a new experience, and coming back home sounded like a good idea. So I moved back home, and that was also shortly after we lost my mom to cancer. And so just really felt like a coming home to be near family again, and was blessed to bring my nonprofit job with me, and made a transition a few years ago to financial planning. So that's a little bit of my life story.
Yeah, DC is, I have visited. I never wanted to live there, but cities are fun when you're young, and there's a lot to do in DC, and with all the museums, if you like that, they're free. I don't know if people realize that, but there's a lot of free stuff to do in DC.
Yes.
Unlike New York, there's nothing free in New York.
Living and eating are not very free in DC, or parking, but there are museums. There's a lot of really great stuff. And I did love the city. It's so vibrant. It did feel like a smaller New York in a way. And I don't think I could do New York. There's too much concrete, I think, but
too much.
Too much. Yeah, you're right. Just too much everything. But it was so great. It was, I loved, it was just being in the middle of things. I'd go for a run, and I'm like, oh, look, here's a protest. So it's like, I didn't mean for that to happen, but, I'd run into celebrities or lawmakers or just kind of feeling like I was in the middle of what was happening in the world. And you kind of are to an extent. And it's so interesting too, though, because it's not about like to be living in DC. It's so not about you there. Like everything comes back to, it's about, you get so much more. So I think I also wanted like representation in Congress. I don't know if that matters, but I was like, I want to, send a letter somewhere.
I'll walk it down.
Yeah. So, yeah, exactly. Walk it down the street. But, I loved the action of things. I don't love the power necessarily of things. And so really wanting to, and seeing my friend group kind of turn over every few years or less, because it's such a transient city, I just had a deep desire to root down and be in a community to grow. This sort of comes back to why I do what I do. I want to do life with people. I want to work with people who want to, we get to grow together. That's sort of what I see as a possibility in these client relationships, and like a long, and I'm not saying you have to commit to me for life. That's not at all it. But just that's the vision I have is, we're all growing together in time as we're working towards our goals of whatever that might be. And so I've already started seeing that. Some of my clients are saving for their young children's college education and their retirement. And others are, their goals are different. They're managing their required minimum distributions. They're like, we don't want any more income. We don't want to pay any more taxes. We want all of, as much of this as possible to stay in those accounts so that whoever we're leaving this to can enjoy it, because we have more than enough. So there are definitely different stages of people who I work with there, but and then you've got the people in between who their goals are, I don't know yet. I just want to have options whenever I get to wherever that is. So
yeah, because we don't know what is in store for us as we go down that road called life. It could be a short road. Could be a long, long road.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's look, like I think some people are averse to planning just because I don't want to lock in a decision. And I don't think you have to necessarily lock in a decision or a destination. Like, I don't know if you've ever just gotten in the car to drive somewhere, like you kind of know where you're going, but you're like, okay, I don't need to put on the GPS today. We're just going to go in that direction. And if we're, a block or two off, we'll work our way back and see what we see today. Yeah. And so I think that can also be a path that people take, is we know where we're going generally. We know we're going to save and have a great retirement. Don't know where, don't know how, don't know if it's, multiple homes or living the nomad lifestyle or retiring early, or, you don't have to have any of those decisions made up at all. But some people know exactly what they want.
Yeah. And we tell our kids that our goal is to spend their inheritance before we die. So they can either come with us or they can stay at home, but we're going to go. So this year we're going to Maine. So
I love Maine, especially in the summer. It's amazing.
Oh, I can't wait. We're going the week after 4th of July.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah. I'm excited.
I went one August and I was like, oh my gosh, I can see why people are snowbirds. I want to do this.
Yeah. All right. Well, there's one question that I ask everyone before we leave is, as a woman, whether it's in your business, your life, what is your superpower that you that you tap into when either, like I said, your business or your life? What's your superpower?
I think my superpower is that I can see somebody, for who they are, and kind of deep down, going beneath the surface of things. So I think that's really it. I like to connect with people a little deeper. So I'm a Scorpio. I don't know for whatever that means, but I just feel like there's a level of intimacy and friendship and really truly getting to know someone that I enjoy going beyond some of the surface stuff. Like I'll talk about the weather all day. Sure. Well, not really, but I'll talk about the weather a little bit. But I do like to have, some kind of touch point that feels more meaningful to me and has people feel seen as well. So
yeah, that's so good. Yeah, and that's how, in the world that we're in, there's so much going on and there's so much craziness and madness. I think it's important that we connect with each other. And that's why I love this podcast. And I've changed the format a little bit because I was doing interviews, but then on alternate weeks, I would do something. And I'm like, you know what? I miss doing interviews. I love talking to people. I love hearing these women's stories and sharing them because something you said today is going to touch someone and give them this idea of, hey, I could do that. I'd like to do that. I'd like to live in DC, or I'd like to live in a city and experience that. So thank you so much for your time, Melissa. It's been just an honor getting to know you. And I'm so excited for the people that you're going to serve and that you're already serving. So thank you.
Thank you so much, April. Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am. You have a great day, and we'll see everyone later. Just stay tuned for another episode of What's Her Superpower, and don't forget to tap into your superpower. Bye. Forget unicorns. Unlock your true potential with actionable tips, inspiring stories, and a whole lot of laughs. Join the mission. Subscribe now. Find your own What's Her Superpower. Join the mission.